Picture this, a slice of life anime set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Yeah, you heard that right. If you know what I'm talking about, you know ball. That's right, today I'm talking about Girls' Last Tour, a slice of life anime about two girls traveling through post-apocalyptic ruins, making the most of their journey. This review is pretty spoiler-free, but if you'd like, go watch it yourself and tell me your thoughts. Alright, let's get into it. So it's been a bit since I've seen a slice of life anime. This was a much slower pace than I've been used to, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. But normally, when you hear slice of life, you typically expect a more upbeat and positive kind of setting and theme, and this anime does quite the opposite. One of the few things that misled me was when I first heard the opening and endings. They kinda tricked me because the vibe seemed way different than what I was getting into. They're actually both pretty good though. Story and theme-wise, it's kind of a 180. Before I dive into the story, I have to talk about what makes this anime feel the way it does. The character's art style heavily reminds me of Made in Abyss's chibi-like style. This stylistic choice benefits the anime though because it's such a big difference that helps balance the atmosphere a bit, and it feels almost out of place, but it works so well. A very large part of that contrasting vibe comes from the color design. Often the viewer sees a very dark, depressing landscape that evokes melancholy. In addition to the fantastic sound design, the ambience mixed with their vehicle's engine running or their slow walk through a place really sells where they are. The music, ambience, and dark landscape create an atmosphere of despair. But then, faded colors turn vibrant and the music builds, breaking through that despair and creating a picture of hope. It's a beautiful contrast. One of my personal favorite moments is from one of the final scenes from episode 5. Chito and Yuri are in a world where there isn't much to appreciate. They do things for survival, never really taking the time to enjoy life or relax. They always keep moving. But there's a conversation they have about music at the beginning of the episode, and later on it creates such a profound moment between the two. Other than being connected through traveling and surviving together, they get a moment of peace and relaxation where they can take in the world's beauty, no matter how ugly it may seem. And I think it's such a beautiful scene that really captures both the enjoyment of the little moments and the ways to connect with one another. Chito and Yuri make a great distinction in the series' mood. They're such a good contrast to one another, and it makes their relationship fun to watch. Chito is quiet and composed while being survival-focused, the opposite of Yuri, who is nonchalant and often too relaxed in moments of worry. Yuri may be on the rage bait level of the hat guy from the Escape podcast, though. If you know what I'm talking about, that is a deadly amount of rage bait. I will say that this anime heavily relies on people enjoying these two characters in particular. Not to say they're not enjoyable, but they're not outgoing and always cracking jokes. They're just like if you or I were thrown into a barren wasteland. Which again, I think for the anime is perfect, but I can understand some people being a bit unhappy with seeing the same two characters the entire time. White Fox Studio took on this project, and I would have been jumping for joy. Compared to Re:Zero, there ain't really to animate. It's not to say it's not smooth or good animation, but you also can't say this isn't sort of a walking simulator as an anime. There's quite a bit of traveling, but there's not a whole ton of progression, not much of a side cast. There are points where they're just driving or walking or doing something minuscule. I think this raises a very compelling topic about stories and entertainment. Does a story always have to be interesting? Does a story always serve a purpose as entertainment? Obviously, the answer is no, but does every anime you watch have to grip you and keep you in suspense or have you on the floor laughing? No. Would some people prefer that? Absolutely. For example, Chito and Yuri are probably some of the most normal characters you could find. What if one of them had supernatural abilities where they were able to fly or read minds? That would surely be more interesting. But that's not the point of the anime. It doesn't have to be any of that. In fact, what makes it most interesting is the groundedness it sticks to. We see a total of 3 side characters throughout the entire anime: Kanazawa, Ishii, and an automaton. Seriously, a robot is one of the 3 characters that show up in this anime. And they're not even recurring characters. Kanazawa is like Cornifer from Hollow Knight. His whole life and purpose is making maps. From an outside perspective, it is such a depressing thing that that's his whole life. To us, his life's work disappears in 20 minutes. I mean, that was his everything. Even still, he holds on to hope and continues on. Ishii, a scientist whose whole goal is to build a plane because she can see the horizon of a distant city. That's her motivation. But again, in the span of 20 minutes, for us, it's all lost, but for her, it may have been years, a decade. It's all the more heartbreaking. The automaton's whole goal is to keep a singular fish alive. Who knows how much food is left or how much battery the automaton has? It could all end tomorrow, but it still continues on. And that right there is the beauty of this story. Sure, each and every character may have a goal that seems impossible, but it's the end of the world. Why not keep trying? Why look at the ground when you can look up at the stars? Whether they fall further into despair or spiral further into hope, it's such a realistic way of writing. But those goals also gave each of them something to connect with. It's what they had and they poured their hope into it. With Chito and Yuri, do they have to travel around? Do they have to struggle to find food and fuel all the time? No, but humans will sometimes find the most ridiculous things to cling to. Even in moments of hopelessness, as Yuri always talks about, she, for some reason, sticks around and embraces that. That embrace, whatever you may call it, delusion, mental illness, or some twisted way of converting that hopelessness into hope, is all each of them had. Hope and despair aren't the only themes this anime explores. It also asks what makes someone human and what the worth of forgotten memories is. Like when they drove through the mass cemetery and recognized that while the objects they had found weren't of any importance to them, they were important to someone else's life and memory. Or finding the automaton that cared for that fish didn't necessarily mean it had sentience. Still, it was capable of empathy, which in an apocalyptic world, even in ours, is oftentimes taken for granted. For a 12-episode anime, while it is a slow burn, it uniquely dives into some of these subjects, some very briefly, or embracing them fully, like the concept of hopelessness. These themes may seem very grim and saddening, but this anime also stays grounded. Other than the fact that their vehicle gave out on them only once, and there was someone nearby. Like, come on, man. Earlier, I mentioned I'm used to much faster pacing, and that is honestly one of my only earned gripes. I understand this anime is about embracing the smaller things, but some episodes or bits dragged on a bit longer than I think they should have. My other minor gripe is the introduction of Cut or Nuko. I watch this anime in dub like I always do, and before I hear anybody say, "Oh my gosh, how much better," parry this, you filthy casual. But to introduce a creature kinda late with no idea of its origin is sorta random. They'd been seeing the monoliths the entire time, so I guess it wasn't random to find it. It's just that when they do come upon it in episode 11, it's a bit off-putting for an introduction. This anime definitely isn't for everyone. I don't think I would ever watch this anime again because while the anime itself isn't necessarily heavy, the concepts and even some scenes like them witnessing the fall of mankind without realizing it make me a bit uncomfortable. This isn't really my cup of tea when it comes to analyzing dystopian stories like this. I also don't know if I'd ever recommend this anime to someone else. It falls into a very niche category that, sure, is technically a slice of life, but would I call it a super relaxing and comforting anime for me personally? Sometimes, other times, not in the slightest. That's not to say I don't appreciate the writing and the messages it conveys, or that I didn't enjoy it, but it almost feels like it needs its own subcategory within the slice of life genre. Even still, Girls Last Tour proves that an anime doesn't have to have non-stop action to leave a mark. Sometimes watching two friends keep moving forward in the face of despair is enough. I give Girls Last Tour an 8.5 out of 10. If you're still here, thanks for sticking around. If you liked what you saw, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, new drip for the channel. I'm super proud of it. Thank you, Vialfers. You're fantastic. And thank you for watching. Next review is Fruits Basket. Stay tuned. Hope you guys enjoyed.